Probably one of my first memories of arriving in London was just how green everything was, because I had come out of Utah in the middle of winter where everything's just like gray and brown and gray. And even though it was the dead of winter in England, everything's still green. Even when all the trees are dead, like they're all covered in moss. And it was just incredible to me how beautiful the place was in winter. I guess probably one of the first things that surprised me that I hadn't really considered or known about London was the fact that it's a very cosmopolitan city, that there's not that many British people in the city itself. The very first lesson I went to was a man from Venezuela, and most of my first area was like that. We would teach about half the people were British and about half the people were people from all over the world, and that's something that continued throughout my mission. But it's something that I wasn't expecting because, I think of in London, I think of the Brits, but since there's so many immigrants there, a good chunk of my mission was teaching people from around the world. So the London South mission is everything south of the Thames in London. It stretches from basically where the river cuts through the city, all the way down to the coast, and then all the way from there out to Cornwall. So it's basically the entire southern section of England. And so because of that, it's a very, very, very diverse field, because when you're in London, it's a city, it's metropolitan, it's business people and wealthy Brits, as well as immigrants and other people, and it's very, very compact. But then if you move out west, past areas like Stonehenge and Devon and Cornwall, those areas are much more rural and small town cities. So the work drastically changes depending on where you are in the mission. You could be in an area where you ride buses all day and spend a lot of the time talking to people on buses, or you could be in an area where you will drive an hour or so to get to the nearest village and then spend your time there and then move around in that case. So it's a very, very diverse area. You're also very lucky to be in the London South Mission because there's only 2 temples currently in the UK. And one of them, which is one of the original 12 temples around the globe, is in the London South Mission. It's right where your mission home is, so you spend quite a bit of time there, and you're able to go to the temple a lot more than you would be in other missions. Because it's such a wide change geographically, I served in some wards that had 180 people attending sacrament each week. And they had to rent out a school hall because there was no buildings nearby that were big enough for them. And I served in wards that had maybe 60 to 80 active members. And so it really will vary where you serve. I had friends that served in branches that had 6 members that attend regularly. And so as you move around the mission, it can be very, very strong areas of the church where there have been members living there for hundreds of years, literally. And there'll be other areas where the branch was just barely formed within the last 20 or 30 years. And so it's incredible the diversity of the experience that you have serving in London South. Being called to England is something that's very exciting because of the heritage the church has in England. And this is something they spend some time with you at the MTC helping you to understand that the first and only mission that all of the 12 went together to work together was in England. As they all went up and served in northern England and also came down to London. And so I personally have a lot of heritage from the people that were converted from England and came over. And I know that the majority of the saints in Nauvoo and then those that moved over into the Salt Lake Valley came from England. And so Britain has a large history of being a place where the elect gather and where the strength of the church can be built. And it was a strong sentiment we had as we were there, that we were just part of something much, much bigger than ourselves, and a work that had been started in that country, 200 years before us. And we were just following in the footsteps of Heber C. Kimball and Parley P. Pratt and other people like that. I think one of the most frequent things that I ran into as an opposition or as a problem in teaching was it wasn't very apparent for people often, I guess, what was the point of the restoration. And this is for people that already had Christian understanding or had been raised understanding Christian doctrines, both from England and immigrants. Many people just would love the message we would share and would agree with us and want to talk about Jesus Christ, but would struggle to understand exactly why having the Book of Mormon is such a blessing, or why we care about our prophets or feel like our prophets are different than the ecclesiastical leaders that they have in their churches. And that was honestly one of the biggest struggles in teaching, to help people understand that that the apostasy was a real thing, that authority was lost, and that what we are sharing as missionaries isn't something that is, there's two different extremes, that it's something that either is just a suitable alternative to their religion, but something that is equal in value, or also that what we were teaching was not seeking to destroy or tear down or break away from any of the good things that they had learned. Some people would be offended or would be hesitant or angry or misunderstanding when we tried to explain to them that truth was lost. And I found you had to be clear, but you also had to be kind. You don't accomplish anything by just telling someone that they're wrong and that their church is hogwash and that it's the result of corruption or of misunderstanding. Because I strongly, personally believe that many of these churches were led and guided by men that were inspired and guided by God. But just simply helping them to understand that God is still actively involved. And while everything that they've learned that is true in their own church is good, that there is an opportunity for them to continue building the kingdom of God right now. That there is an opportunity for them to continue the work that Jesus Christ started all those years ago right now. That they have the opportunity to become involved in the actual and authorized kingdom of God here on the earth today. So it requires clarity, it requires understanding, and it requires a lot of asking them. And I think this is probably one of the biggest key points is that you need to ask them what they think and what they feel about what you say before you proceed. You need to understand exactly where they're coming from and what they think about what you've said, so that you can address concerns as they actually are instead of as you imagine them to be. So making sure that any kind of teaching situation is an open conversation instead of a lecture, I guess. I began my mission in November 2011 and I finished my mission in November 2013. When I first got to the mission field, I served in Epsom for 6 months. Then I served in Staines upon Thames for 3 months. I served in Farnborough for 6 months. Then I went and served in Redhill, which was actually in the Epsom ward, for another 3 months. I spent one transfer down in Southampton, and then I was transferred to Welling, which is in East London, for the final 6 months of my mission.